In this third review section, we're going to look at order of operations and how to evaluate a complex expression involving multiplication, exponents, brackets, things added up, divided, multiplied, and subtracted possibly. Okay, now this is a convention. Okay, when we're going to write things down, and when we want to evaluate them, okay, we have agreed. Okay, this is just a convention, but you have to remember the convention, otherwise you won't be able to evaluate things correctly. It's like language is a convention, right? So the way we write things down is a convention. The way letters combine to form sound, that's a convention. You have to learn that in order to be able to read. Well, it's the exact same thing with mathematics. So imagine I write down something like this. Okay, well, what does the person who has written this down mean? Does that mean this is minus 5 times 5? Or maybe this is minus 5 times minus 5, because squaring is like multiplying twice by itself, and those are not the same, right? Minus 5 times 5, that's minus 25, and minus 5 times minus 5, that's 25. So those are not the same. So we have to agree whether we mean this or that when we write something like this. Okay, and this is pretty simple. Okay, so imagine I've got something more complex. I have to agree on how these symbols interact, and in order to give me my final answer. And the way we have, the convention we have adopted is given by the order given here. Okay, so 1 is more important than 4. So 1 means if you see brackets, parentheses, absolute values, okay, we don't have any in my current example, but you would evaluate what's inside of those first. After that, if you've got exponents, you apply the exponent first. So if I look at my expression here, I've got this squaring operator, right? So I apply that first to what stands next to it. So what's next to it? Is it 5? Maybe since it's minus 5. Well, if I want this to be minus 5, I need the minus to apply to 5 first. So if it's minus 5, the writer would have had to put this in brackets. If I want the squaring operator to apply to minus 5, but because there's no bracket here, it means that it applies immediately to what's next to it, and it's 5. 5 is right next to it. There are no brackets, so it's a symbol just underneath it. So it's 5 squared that we do first. So actually, we need to do this first. 5 squared is 5 times 5, and then we hit that with a negative sign. So when we write minus 5 squared, this is exactly what we mean. We don't mean that at all. Okay, so if I write this carefully, this is minus 25, like this. Okay, let's do another one. If I have 2 plus 3 times 9 minus 4 squared. Okay, let's go down the list. Okay, 1, parentheses, brackets. Yes, I have some, right there. So I'm going to evaluate what's inside of this first. Well, 9 minus 4, that's 5. And it's squared. Okay, parentheses, I don't have any anymore. So exponents, yes, I have one. The 2, it applies to what's next to it immediately. So it's 5. So that's going to be 2 times 3 times 25. And then after that, no exponents anymore. Do I have multiplications or divisions? That's item number 3. Yes, I do. Everything's multiplied actually. So it's 6 times, it's 2 times 3, 6 times 25. That gives me, little mistake. It's not all multiplied. I have a plus sign here. So it's 3 and 25 that are multiplied. So 75. Sorry about that. And then finally, I've got an addition to perform. That's the number 4 on my list. So 78. Okay. With what did I do here? Small mistake. This is a 2. So this is, sorry about that, 77. Okay, finally, let's do one that's oh, maybe before we move on, you see, I wrote this down. This is going to come back later on, but I thought I'd put it here. What are absolute values? They're written with this symbol. So when we write down something like this, okay, I don't know. Let's say I have this expression here. This is called the absolute value of 9 minus 4. Okay, so it's like a bracket, but it plays a special role. It's not a normal bracket. It calculates the magnitude of whatever is inside. So what do I mean by that? So it initially plays the role of a bracket in the sense that you would evaluate what's inside of the absolute value before doing anything else. So you get 9 minus 4, 5. And then the absolute value, it gives you the magnitude of the number, or the length of the number if you prefer. So on the real axis, 5 is here, so it gives you the length of that number. So here, the length of 5 is 5, right? So that's the absolute value of 5 is the same as 5. But let's say I have something like this instead. Now I have the absolute value of minus 5. Now minus 5 is here, so I want to calculate how far it is from the origins. That's what I call the magnitude of the number, or the length of the number. And that's 5. So as you can see, if you have a negative number, you end up with its opposite if you calculate the absolute value. But this is going to come back later. So in the exercises, you won't see the absolute value symbol, but I thought I'd mention it. My last example, I want to do something that's maybe a bit more complex. I've got, let's see, I'm going to write this down. And on purpose, I'm going to write down different types of brackets and parentheses. Usually we tend to vary the type of brackets and parentheses to so that it's easier to read. So I can see that this squaring bracket, it ends here. This one here ends here, okay, and this one ends with this one. That's pretty clear. This one ends with this one. That's also pretty clear. So when we evaluate something like this, I have to evaluate what's inside a bracket first. Now the most outer bracket are the green ones, okay? So then I move inside, and what do I find inside? I find I find this one here, these parentheses, but minus 1 is already, what's inside is already evaluated. Then I move to the squaring bracket, the square brackets, and what do I find inside? I find another pair of parentheses. So you see, this is what I have to evaluate first. 3 squared plus 1. Now 3 squared, there's an exponent, so I evaluate 3 squared first. That gives me 9. So you see, I'm going to write that in small steps, but ultimately as you become better, you can do many steps at once. So 3 squared, I evaluate that. That's 9. So essentially the trick is to evaluate the most inner bracket first, and then you move your way towards the exterior, okay, and removing as many brackets as possible. See, 9 plus 1 is the most inner bracket, but that's 10, so I can replace that by 10 now. Okay, and then I just got rid of one of the pair of brackets. Okay. And then what's the most inner bracket now? It's this pair of square brackets. I'm going to evaluate what's inside of that next. So 32 minus 4 times 10. Okay, well, okay, let's go very slowly. I've got 32 minus 4 times 10. Let's do this on the side just... Okay. Do I do 32 minus 4 first? Is that like minus 28 times 10? No, I have a multiplication. Multiplication has priority over addition. Yeah? And multiplication is number 3, so it's a lower number than 4. So I do the multiplication first. So 4 times 10, 40. Okay. Then I I still have this pair of brackets, so I evaluate what's inside of that. 32 minus 40, that's minus 8. And now I just got rid of it. Be careful. I don't want to put minus 8 like that here. Because if I do, I'm going to think that this is minus 7 minus 8. But it's multiplied. So because it's multiplied, I'm going to put minus 8 inside a pair of brackets so that I know it's 7 times minus 8. Okay. Or sometimes that's also not something I would suggest, but you could put a little dot, so it's 7 times minus 8, but usually I don't want to have like two symbols like this, one next to each other without any brackets in between them, so I prefer to write this like that. Okay, and now what do I have? I've got the expression inside this bracket. Well, there's an exponent here, the 2, the squaring. So I do that first. So 64 minus 7 times minus 8 times minus 1. Okay, so inside this pair of brackets, I have a subtraction, but I also have things multiplied here, right? 7 minus 8 minus 1, those are all multiplied. So I'm going to do those first. I'm going to multiply those first. So 7 times minus 8, that's minus 56, times minus 1, that's 56. So this is minus 56. And finally, inside this last pair of brackets, I have a subtraction. I'm just going to perform the subtraction. 64 minus 56, that's 8. So 2 times 8, 16, and I'm done. So I took my time. Sometimes you can do a lot of operations at the same time. Maybe to give you an idea, I could redo this example. But before I do that, I'd like to show you something that when you write down your solution, okay, it's really good to stack up all the different expressions that you get after each step, like I did. But each time you start a new line, don't forget to put your equality sign, okay, along the way until you get your final answer. Okay, so when you put the equality sign, let's say here, it means this is equal to what came previously to. So okay, what came previously is this thing here. So, whoop. Thought this erased by itself, but it doesn't. All right. So I'd like to. I'm going to redo this and showing you how you can skip some steps and go a bit faster. Okay, so I've erased everything. Okay, so I'm going to put my equality sign here. Now, there are some steps I can do simultaneously. Okay, well the minus 1. Okay, it stays minus 1, but inside this bracket I've got 3 squared plus 1. Obviously, right, 3 squares 9 plus 1 10, so I could write 10 immediately like that. Okay, 8 squared, I know that's going to give me 64, so you can evaluate that. Okay, and then I've got this square bracket to take care of. 32 minus 4 times 10, so once you get good at this, 4 times 10 is 40. 32 minus 40, that's minus 8. Okay, and here's someone that's not too bad. We could say, well, 7 times minus 8 times minus 1, so that's 56. So that's going to give me 64 minus 56, and finally 64 minus 56 as before. That's that's 8 plus 8. And 2 times 8, 16. So you see, so I've skipped some steps, especially you see this part, and evaluating this immediately. You see, so that saved me 2-3 lines. So of course, this is once you become good at this. So if you're experiencing trouble, if you're not getting the answers that you find at the end of the book when you do the exercises, well, do it step by step, okay, or by little steps, and try not to do everything all at once. And once you you get better at this, then you can start accelerating and skipping some steps. Yes, I'm going to stop here.